Blessings upon you today. Welcome to our Cornerstone Word for the Week. It's our weekly Bible study, which also incorporates the International Sunday School study for the upcoming week. I'm Pastor Augustus T. Curry, and as always, it's a joy and delight to share with you in the study of the Word. I'm super excited about our study today as we conclude this unit dealing with the measure of faith. The measure of faith. We opened up this unit looking at the faith of the persistent. That was in Luke chapter 5. We saw 4 friends of a man who was paralytic coming to get him, carry him on his sick bed to see Jesus. When they get to the house where Jesus was, they could not get in for the crowd that was in there. And so they go up on the roof, tear up the roof, let the man down in front of Jesus. And the Bible says when Jesus saw their faith, in other words, the persistence of their faith, he then went ahead, told the man his sins were forgiven. When those in the house had a problem with him saying that, he said, well, not only am I going to do that, but also because of their faith, I'm going to heal the man as well. Tells the man, pick up his bed and walk. The man ends up having to walk out past those who would not originally let him in. After looking at that persistent faith, we then looked at the second lesson, which dealt with the faith of a centurion. That also was in the Gospel of Luke, Luke chapter 7. The faith of a centurion. There was a centurion gentleman who was over 100 people in the army, and yet he had commanders over him, and he saw a connection with Jesus. He had a very sick daughter who was at the point of death, but he heard about this man named Jesus who also had authority over many and yet had God the Father over him, and he beseeched him that he would come and heal his daughter. And the record is that he ends up running and or sending word to Jesus about the matter and telling Jesus, I'm not really worthy for you to come to my house. Just speak a word from where you are, and my daughter will be healed. And Jesus says, what great faith. And Jesus, of course, speaks the word, and his daughter is healed at that same hour. Then, thirdly, we looked at the faith of an anointer. That also was in Luke chapter 7, verses 36 through 50. We saw a woman who came to see Jesus. He was reclining at a house eating, and at that time, if you were well-to-do, you had a courtyard in front of your house, and when you had special guests, a special rabbi, you would invite them over, and they would recline at the table, and other people from the public could simply come in and sit around them in the courtyard and hopefully overhear some words of wisdom from the rabbi or the special guest. This woman was in that crowd, but she did not come incidentally. She came intentionally, for she brought with her an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, and the record is she poured it on the feet of Jesus and then wiped his feet with her hair. The Bible says a woman's hair is her glory, and so she gave him all of the glory she had. She gave him the best offering she got. She said, I'm not even worthy to pour this on your head. I can't anoint your head, but I can anoint your feet. And it was because of her faith that she was able to be a blessing to the master, and certainly he was a blessing to her. Today we're looking at the faith of a Canaanite. It is labeled in some Sunday school lesson books as the faith of an outsider. The faith of an outsider. Let's look at it today. It's found in Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. 8. It's quite an interesting passage. I know you're going to be blessed by it today. It opens up by saying, "Then Jesus went thence," this is King James Version, "and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon." Coast of Tyre and Sidon. What is significant about that? The significance of it is that this is Jesus moving outside of Jewish territory. And so this is what Matthew is showing us, is that this is starting to be part of the movement where the gospel is being spread out to the world, to not just given for those who have some Jewish lineage and the like. And of course, Matthew writes primarily and originally to Jews. And he says here that Jesus went thence and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon. Completely Gentile territory, right? And he goes there, and verse 22 says, "And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast." Now, this is in the Gospel of Matthew. Gospel of Mark does not mention the woman being a Canaanite coming out of Canaan. It just says, more or less, she was a Syrophoenician woman. Now, why does Matthew, and of course Mark is written first, why does Matthew interject that this woman is a Canaanite? Again, Matthew is writing to the Jews. He's trying to set them straight, and he wants to portray and to demonstrate how Jesus is trying to put them on blast, if you will. He's trying to show how far off base they are, including the disciples, stuck with tradition, stuck with rituals. And he says the kingdom is more than that. It's more than that. It's open to everyone. It's open to women. It's open to Canaanites. It's open to Gentiles. And again, you say, well, I get that, but why does he mention Canaan and Mark does not? Well, you've got to know something about Canaan and to whom he's addressing. He's addressing Jews, Orthodox Jews, traditionalists, legalists, and so they were steep into the Old Testament. The Old Testament. And when you go back to Genesis chapter 9, you realize that when Noah comes off the ark, has the assignment of rebuilding the world, replenishing it, if you will, that there was an occasion when Noah overindulged in adult beverages. And he got undressed and laid naked inside his tent. And one of his sons came by and saw his state. And instead of covering him up, looking out for him, he ended up exposing him, his own father. And when Noah comes to himself, realizes what his son has done, he curses his son and his seed. And his son, this particular son's name was what? You got it, Canaan. So ever since Genesis chapter 9 all the way to Matthew 15, these people who would call themselves Jews and of the Jewish heritage, they always held and saw and viewed Canaan as cursed people. And so here in Matthew 15, here's a woman, not simply a Syrophoenician, which would describe her geographical background, but a Canaanite, which describes her ethical and ethnical background. All right. So Matthew is demonstrating to these Jews, and in fact, even to these disciples that are with Jesus, that these people who you despise, Jesus is going to show you through this interaction here at Matthew 15, verses 21 through 28. He's going to show you that these who you despise the most, God is able to do a wonder with them, and they'll demonstrate more faith than you ever had. And so it says, behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. Behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast, cried unto him, saying, she's crying out, coming to him. Now, if she's coming out of Gentile country, how did she ever hear of him? This is some distance away from where Jesus would normally preach and teach. Matter of fact, he's going out that way. It appears initially to get away from the crowd. He's trying to get away from the Jews, he's trying to get away from the hostility that has arisen against him in Palestine and the like. And so he's going to get away, and yet he runs into humanity needing him wherever he goes. And so this woman of Canaan comes out of the same coast, cries unto them, have mercy on me. Notice the cry is not for her daughter, but the cry of mercy is for her. But her daughter is the one that is possessed with a demon. Now, Tyre and Sidon, again, it's Gentile country, and the people there worship the idol god Baal. Matter of fact, Sidon is the home, believe it or not, of a woman by the name of Jezebel. And so that lets you know what type of place it is, right? And so, but here she is coming to Jesus, asking him to have mercy on her. Seems like she would have gone to the God whom she knew, Baal. But obviously she ran into an issue that what she had been using could do her no good and could give her no proper help and relief. And so she ends up hearing about Jesus. He's in town. Finally, he's in the area, and she makes it her business to make her way to go see Jesus. She cries out, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. Have mercy on me, sir, son of David, son of David. Now, the term son of David is a Jewish term. You've heard expressions dealing with David, the star of David, things of that nature. Son of David, that's the Jewish term. That's what Jews referred to. Some Jews at the time referred to Jesus as and coming Messiah, son of David, seed of David, etc. And so she starts out with that name. So she's addressing him with a political name, if you will. Son of David, my daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. And so a daughter, a young girl, is possessed with a demon of some nature. And verse 23 says, but he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him. And let me pause right there and say to you that sometimes when you are hurting and and it's known that you are hurting, and 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 no one seems to be listening or caring, and then don't say anything to you about it. That can be quite a disturbing thing to happen. Perhaps you've been there, you've been in a situation, you were hurting. It was known to others that you were hurting, and yet you are ignored, get no feedback whatsoever. It can add on to it. It can be quite a process. He answered her not a word. Why would Jesus do that? Well, we've always heard that Jesus is always there to hear and answer prayers. We've heard he's an on-time God. Yes, he is, and all that. But here's a woman hurting, asking for mercy. Her daughter is vexed and grievously vexed with a devil. But verse 23, but he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, send her away, for she crieth after us. Send her away. The church said, send her away. The traditionalists in the church said, send her away, for she crieth after us. Notice that the disciples wanted Jesus to get rid of the woman, clearly not out of compassion for the woman, but simply because she was bothering them. Kind of reminds you of when the Apostle Paul was being followed by a woman who also had a demon, and he just got so tired of her hollering out behind him, even as if she was in agreement with what he was saying, teaching, and preaching, that he finally turned around and said, be it unto you. And he ends up exorcising the demon out the woman. And then as a result of that, of course, he and Silas end up being in prison, right? And so it's kind of like that with these disciples. They weren't asking Jesus to address her because they were so compassionate and felt so wonderful about her, but because she was bothering them, hollering behind them, shrieking, crying out after us, as they say. Again, Jesus answers not a word. Disciples besought him, saying, send her away. She cried after, take care of her. And then finally, verse 24, but he answered and said to the woman, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And then verse 25, she comes back and says, the Bible says, verse 25, then came she and worshiped him, saying, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. Notice that Jesus seems to have not been so interested in quickly helping the woman for what she was requesting. But notice that how her address of him has changed in the process. Just in case you thought God's delay was his denial, but no. Sometimes he puts us on delay to help us. She came to him so she had some faith, but whether it was more superstitious or not, we can't really tell, because again, she comes to him as son of David. But when he puts her on delay, she comes around to calling him now Lord. And so her faith has grown in this delayed process, if you will. And so he says, I'm not come but to the house of Israel. But verse 25 again, then she and worshiped him. She came to him more so out of curiosity, wondering if he could. Again, she comes from a place that worshiped Baal, but she had heard about this man, Jesus. Verse 25, she came and worshiped him now, saying, Lord, help me. She's like, enough of all that other stuff. Notice, if you will, the love that she has for her daughter that would make her even risk being ostracized from Tyre and Sidon. And she goes out to meet this man, Jesus. She risks being criticized by his disciples, the traditionalists in the church, all of that. But because of her love for her daughter, because of her love for her child, she'll do whatever it takes to get help for her child. As a matter of fact, because her child is hurting, she's hurting. No wonder she asked Jesus, even before mercy on her child, she says, Lord, have mercy on me. Son of David, have mercy on me. I'm hurting because my child is hurting. Doesn't it sound like a picture of another parent who sent his only begotten son, his beloved son, and who ends up giving his life for us who are the adopted children of his father, adopted by blood of the Father? It's an intriguing text for our consideration. And again, verse 25, she came, worshiped him, saying, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. You're more than the son of David. You're Lord. You're Lord. Verse 26, but he answered and said, it is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. Dogs, this word dogs in the Greek comes from a word that means not a scavenger dog, not a street dog, not an alley dog, not a dog who's ravages through waste and what have you, and garbage for food. This is a domesticated pet. Domesticated pet. One who would be in the house. One who would be in the house. And so Jesus says it's not meet to take the children's bread, cast it to the dogs. Children's bread, bread that the children of Israel, the house of Israel, should be eating gladly and freely. He said it's not meet to take that and cast it to the dogs, is it? Verse 27, and she said, truth, Lord. In other words, I hear what you're saying, and I'm still not going anywhere till you bless me. Matter of fact, my faith is growing all the time while I'm waiting, and you're still talking. So she says, truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat up the crumbs which fall from their master's table. So now, Pastor, how do you know it's a domesticated dog? It's a pet, not a wolf-like dog. Well, first of all, the dog is in the house. That's where the tables were that they were eating from. Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Now, were these people so clumsy that just food often fell off the table onto the floor? You know, what do you mean crumbs which fall from their master's table? Well, the average household at that time did not always have linen napkins and cloths and paper towels and all of that. Bounty, pick up of paper towels. And so they would have white bread on the table. And when they would eat, and particularly sometimes they would soak their food in olive oil and the like. When they would eat, their hands, when they would eat with their hands would get naturally greasy. And so they would wipe their hands on the white bread that would be at the table. And it's in the wiping their hands with the white bread that the crumbs from the bread would fall onto the floor. So when she says, yet the dogs eat up the crumbs, she's not even asking for the bread that the children would eat, but she's talking about even the bread that was just used to wipe your hands clean. She said, just let me get at least the crumbs from that. If you don't think I'm worthy to sit at your table, just let the crumbs fall from the bread that you use to wipe your hands of those who sit at the table, and I'll be satisfied. And Jesus says, my God, what faith is this? Verse 28, then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And the Bible says, and her daughter was made whole from that very hour. Doesn't that remind you of the previous lessons? The persistent faith of the four friends of the paralytic. They brought him, Jesus heals the man, the paralyzed man, because of their faith. When Jesus saw their faith, it even sounds like the centurion who besought Jesus and said, Jesus, if you just speak a word, my child will live. It was because the Bible says nothing about the faith of the child. The centurion was beseeching Jesus to intercede for. Just when Jesus saw the faith of the centurion, he ends up healing the child. Likewise here, here's this woman who's demonstrating her faith. We don't know anything about the faith of her daughter who has the demon in her. But because of her faith, oh, what an awesome text. Because of her faith, woman, great is thy faith, be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. Tremendous implications in the passage. Describes again the occasion on which Jesus moves outside of familiar territory where most people would expect him to be, and goes out into the hedges, the highways, the places that other Jews would not go in, that rabbis would not go in, that many others who claim to be followers of him would not go, but he goes there and encounters a woman, ends up building her faith to the extent that she could get the blessing that she desired. What an awesome picture for us. Of course, he puts the disciples and the Jews and the rabbis to shame with this account. Again, the woman shows that she did have love. She loved her daughter so much that she would go to any extent to get help for her. She had faith. It was a faith which grew the more contact she had with Jesus. And then this woman had what you call an indomitable persistence. She was what you call undiscourageable. That's a word. She was undiscourageable in her faith as it grew. So many people, it is said, pray because they do not want to miss a chance. They pray because they do not want to miss an opportunity. But this woman came. She prayed. She cried out to the Lord, not just because it was a possibility he could help her, but she cried out to him because she realized that he was her only hope. Came from a background of people that served an idol god called Baal. And it just goes to show you, you can, even from a bad environment, you still can live a positive life if you have faith in the right one. My God, my God. And then this woman finally had the spirit of cheerfulness. Spirit of cheerfulness. Don't overlook that. She was in the midst of trouble with a child, yet she was passionately in earnest in seeking help for the child, and yet could smile through it all. She had a cheerful faith, that could not be turned around. No matter what was said, she was going to be there until she got her blessing. What an awesome example of how we too can approach the Lord and find answer to our long sought after prayers. What an amazing account. Thank God for his word today. I pray you've been blessed by that. And I entreat you to go back. Matter of fact, read it again. And knowing now what you know now, and you'll be blessed by it even more. Sometimes it's good to go back and look at a passage after we've reviewed it and studied it here, and it'll either deepen and grow your faith all the more when you do that. Listen, next week we'll start a new unit still within this series on faith, and this unit will be standing in the faith. Standing in the faith. And so we'll look at this ideal of being justified by faith. What does that mean? Justified by faith. And so read Romans chapter 3, verses 21 through 30. Romans chapter 3, verses 21 through 30. And it's going to be a great unit series for us to look at. God bless you. Again, I'm Pastor Augustus T. Curry from the Cornerstone Church. We be so delighted and you be so blessed to be with us every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock a.m. for worship. We just have a wonderful time of worship and fellowship here at Cornerstone, 640 Ebenezer Church Road. We're on the Fayetteville, Peachtree City line here in Fayette County, Georgia, 640 Ebenezer Church Road. You'll be delighted and glad that you came this way. Until next time, God bless you. Keep the faith.